Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks, Erin.
For having us.
Great to see you. So Joe Charnitski, Sprinklr, to clarify and confirm, the world's only unified customer experience management platform. Talk to me more about that later. We're here to hear from you, not from me. So whenever I get asked to do something like this, best practice for all of you, the first thing I do is go to LinkedIn, and I see what has this person been posting, see if I can get some insights. And Erin, I thank you so much, because Erin posted, first of all, a job opportunity. So Erin's hiring, in case you guys are wondering. And I'm just going to read it straight out, because this is a fantastic group of words. Erin says, if you want to join a customer-obsessed team to drive personalized customer interactions, making the most of the intersection of data, tech, and creativity to build loyalty. All of my questions come from that job posting, because so many great words in there. I'll start at the beginning. What does it mean to you to be customer obsessed?
Yeah, to be customer obsessed is to really, a lot of people will say, do you sometimes put a chair in the corner in a conference room to represent the customer? But thinking about ourselves as consumers at all times, we are obsessed with gathering intelligence about our customers, whether it's qualitative, ethnographic, in-home research, shop-along data in our retail stores, quantitative insights. We never stop. We also have our executive team spend time working in stores. So this is a critically important part of putting ourselves in our customers' shoes at all times. And I would also say that we have begun to embrace OSAT and particularly NPS as critical metrics of success as part of our balanced scorecard. So yes, we hold ourselves highly accountable to sales and margin and units and trips and customer counts and all of those things. But side by side on our balanced scorecard, our customer perception metrics. Are we delivering on the functional emotional needs of our customers? Do we have an NPS that we feel proud of? And what are we doing to deliver that? The other piece I'd add is we also think about colleagues in the same way. We are becoming more colleague obsessed. In our retail stores, we refer to them as community health centers in a lot of cases. It's our frontline colleagues, our pharmacists, the people that are checking you out at the front. And if we aren't providing great experiences for them, they won't create great experiences for our customers. They are the face of the brand. And so we, again, are just inherently like, how can we get more information? How do we measure qualitative things? And how do we make NPS a metric that the entire organization rallies behind?
Always a good question to ask. How do I lighten the load and clear the path for our colleagues to help customers get a little happier? We're going to come back to all that data, because I don't think anyone in the room is short of data, but then what do you do with it? We'll come back to that. But let's go back to your job posting here. Personalized customer interactions. So a little bit, being customer obsessed, I believe, goes back to the reason is to give them something personal. I am by contract obligated at least once to say personalization at scale, so there I said it. So what have you put in place on your team or in the organization to drive those personalized customer interactions?
Yeah, this is actually something that we are no stranger to. We actually have one of the longest standing loyalty programs in existence with our Extra Care loyalty program. It was established over 20 years ago, well before I joined the organization. It was extremely powerful at the time and has demonstrated real value. So we now have almost 75 million customers that are members of our loyalty program and essentially give us permission to communicate with them in relevant ways. So we use that and we take responsibility in that, and we use that, the mechanisms with which we might engage them evolve. So whether it was email 20 years ago and direct mail, and now it's SMS, we're just constantly meeting her where she is, but trying to provide that relevance as much as possible. And then what we've done most recently in 2020, we took that platform and that foundation that we established, and we introduced the CVS Retail Media Exchange. So now we're in the media exchange business, and it enables our suppliers to engage with our customers in a more personalized way. It benefits our supplier partners because they get closer reporting on what their media is driving, but it benefits our customers too, because those brands that they love are able to communicate with them in a more relevant manner. Buy CPG product X, Y, or Z at your local CVS. So we're just, continually doing that. But I will say, for us, it's not just about the digital mechanisms and the way to engage with customers digitally, but our pharmacists. And creating those human experiences is critically important. So more and more, we're trying to think about how we use the data that we have, not just to make you to take the next best action, right? So we know you're ready to buy X, Y, or Z, or you're ready to fill your script. But how do we use that information to create real surprise and delight and moments of joy that don't require the customer to do something, because that's not really surprise and delight, right? If you buy something, you get something. And so that's what we're challenging ourselves to do more of.
I do want to come back to loyalty as well, but first, let's go to that data conversation, and again to your post, because this was really where it gets exciting, right? It's like a narrative she built here in this post. The intersection of data, technology, and creativity. This could be the rest of our conversation. But in your words, tell me about that intersection. What's happening there, and why is it so important for you and your team?
So something that keeps me up a bit at night is that as marketers, we're going to chase the data and the science and the technology so much that we forget about the creativity. I'm aging myself now, but 20 years ago, we used to call this database marketing, right? And you used to fight for the mailbox, the inbox, right? So I started my career in catalog marketing. And yes, we had data, and we knew a lot about your demographic data at the time, and we were able to know what product you should get. But you had to invoke creativity, right? The cover of that catalog mattered because you were competing with 7 or 10 others in the inbox in the same day. And I think we've lost that a little bit when it actually can become more important. Now we're able to communicate with customers, whether it's programmatic display or social media or addressable TV. If you're not invoking emotion and creativity with your customers, you're absolutely not going to cut through. It's particularly when you think about, addressable TV, whether it's humor or provocation or whatever the emotion is that you need to address to resonate with your consumer. We can't lose sight of that. So more and more, we're trying to operate in a pod-like manner where we have marketing strategists, data scientists, creative, social media SME at the table together, and they go back and forth and inform each other, as social listening can help inform data science going forward. So, yeah. Yeah,
and certainly the idea of using all that data, turning it into an insight, and leading with creative. Right, I mean, that's what it's there for. It's intelligence, and so I want to jump ahead a little bit because you just touched on a really important thing there, which is the collaboration required to make all that happen. Right, if you've got goals to utilize insights from what consumers are saying about you or to you, and you want to use that to build creative, you've got to have the workflows in place to make that happen. That's just one example of why that's so important. Let's talk a little bit about collaboration at CVS and how you empower those teams to work together, because I don't know if this is news to you, sometimes there are silos, and bridging them is super important. So what's your recommendation, or what's your practice to bring them together?
What are you talking about, silos? So I would actually say we try to use the word partner more than collaborate. And there's a subtle nuance to that word that's inherently important, because partner means you have an equal seat at the table and you have folks that are driving towards a common goal. I will be completely candid. I'm a super transparent person. Sometimes my corp comm team doesn't love that. But COVID really helped accelerate that for us. We had no choice but to operate differently. And so we catapulted in the early days. I mean, we had to stand up testing for Americans. Like, this was something that the entire organization, it was clear whether you were touching this or not touching this, this was the number one most important thing we could do for our business and for our country, and we had to empower our teams. We put together SWAT teams, and we let them make decisions on a daily basis. And did we get every single decision right? No, but we got most of them right. And it really changed the culture in a good way. So it's one of the positive things that we took away organizationally. And so now we are, empowering our teams. Again, I talked about the pod-like manner. I'll give you a specific example. That relates back to your earlier question. It was like the week before Halloween, and the spirit of Halloween memes were going all over the place with the fun costumes, right? And we had our Halloween marketing plan out there and what have you, but we started seeing this trending. So there was a marketing manager on the team, saw that trending, immediately contacted, this was literally like 48 hours before Halloween. She operates in such a pod-like manner with our social SME and our insights team and everybody else and our creative team that within 24 hours, they had created something that was hyper-relevant to our business, capitalizing on this culturally relevant trend. We posted it, and it was one of the most engaged with pieces of content that we put out there for the year. And you know what? It might not have worked, but it did work. And so that's the idea of if the teams are working together, such in a seamless manner, but empowerment is really critical to do that.
Those things have to happen rapidly.
Rapidly is
and
right.
if you don't have a team working together, best of luck. The pass of the baton is going to fall to the ground, and you've missed your opportunity. And I think we're talking about those proactive opportunities when something amazing is happening. If you don't have that system in place and a platform to make it happen, you better go get one. But when something terrible happens or a crisis emerges, it's even more important. So all those same workflows can work all the same way. I do want to talk about loyalty in a minute, but I would be remiss if we didn't spend a little bit of time talking about the Beauty Mark campaign. I know we chatted about it earlier. I'm not sure how many in the room are familiar with the inner workings of it, so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, remind everybody kind of what it was, how it started, and the impact it's had.
I apologize if I go on a little bit about this one, but there are a few things in your career, those meaningful moments, and as a mom of 3 young daughters, this one has a particular space in my heart. But essentially what the Beauty Mark is our commitment to transparency in beauty imagery in our stores and online. So every image that you see in our stores or online, whether it's produced by CVS or produced by one of our supplier partners, is marked that says beauty unaltered. This image has not been retouched in any way or digitally altered. This came about a little bit over 5 years ago. We were doing, a lot of work to figure out how we were going to reinvent how we position ourselves within the beauty category. At the time, Sephora and Ulta and specialty was exploding, Amazon, Target, the Walmarts, all of the things, right? We're really changing, and we could no longer compete as just the drugstore convenient beauty location. And we were part of this larger CVS Health solutions company. So we took that as a real unique opportunity to transform the way people think about beauty. And we unlocked some really, really rich insights. What we found was there was this white space. Younger millennial consumers, the primary beauty buyers at the time, were telling us that they were seeking more transparency, and that they were turning to influencers because influencers were more transparent. So we started to unpack this a bit more, and then we found some really alarming stats that moved us to act. We found that 80% of women feel worse after seeing beauty advertising. We found that over 40% of girls in 3rd and 4th grade want to be thinner. There's a direct correlation between what we see in the media and what advertisers put out and how we feel about ourselves. And we were not doing enough to build self-confidence. What we were able to do was show that, gosh, if we could disrupt and show people that it's okay to celebrate your freckles. You don't have to wipe them away. It's okay to celebrate your beauty marks and your imperfections. That's actually what makes us great, that consumers would embrace this. They told us they would embrace it, and they did. So we made this announcement in early 2018 that we would be making this commitment because it has an impact on self-confidence, and self-confidence has an impact on health outcomes. We knew it was going to be successful, but we didn't anticipate some of the great things that we saw. 100% positive consumer sentiment. It was pretty unheard of at the time. And we still have more work to do to generate awareness about this 5 years later. It's still an issue. I mean, the proliferation of filters and social media, it's still a really important issue, but we believe in a healthier relationship with beauty, and the Beauty Mark is one of the ways that we do that.
Now, all of you mentioned earlier some CPG companies and the beauty companies that fill your shelves probably had some thoughts about this campaign, and we don't expect you to name any names, but for those who were reluctant, and I'm sure there were some, how did you approach those conversations to bring them on board?
Yeah, I like to say that I had a few sleepless nights before some of these conversations because we also had to time this. Normally you want to bring your supplier partners along very early as you're exploring new opportunities like this, but we knew we had something really unique, so we couldn't bring them along too early. One of the challenges that our supplier partners had was fair, right? Many of these are global brands. And so putting in place the operational processes to do something in the US and for a specific retailer was going to cost them time, money, resources, all those things. And the way we got over that was twofold. One, we continued to reinforce to them how, our partnership and them partnering with CVS Health, this healthcare company, creates an opportunity to compete in the beauty space in a unique way, and we use the customer insights and data. It's hard to refute customer insights and data when this is what our joint customers are telling us. They want more transparency. They want more of this. And if we provide it to them, they'll be more likely to choose us together. So that is ultimately what got us over the hump. And it took us time. It took us years to set up, for both us and our supplier partners, all of the processes. And I'm happy to report that some of them followed suit. I know I'm not supposed to name too many names, but I will give a shout out to P&G and the Olay team, because a couple years after our announcement, they decided that they would no longer alter any of their images as well. So we hope more brands get on board.
So I think what I'm hearing is what's good for the customer is good for business. Which I think what's important about this story and kind of reminding everybody about it is everyone's going to tell you that consumers, especially younger consumers, want to shop where their values are respected. So number one, you better figure out their values. You better know what they are. But there's a lot of conversation around that, but you guys did it. And as you said, 5 years ago. So it's really important. And it's just one example. And, again, I'm sure you could go on for a while about this, but you really are sort of a value-led organization in a lot of ways, and I'm sure you have some more examples you can share.
I do. I would love to share one that's timely and relevant. Yeah, I would say a lot of companies like to say we're purpose-led, we're purpose-driven, all those things. I can say wholeheartedly that CVS Health is fully united in our purpose of being there for every meaningful moment of health. We're no stranger to making tough decisions to stand behind that. We were the first to remove tobacco from our shelves in 2014. We've never sold vaping products. And we're really proud of that. So we're constantly thinking about how we're not only providing products and services, so solutions for customers, and meeting their functional needs, but how we're providing allyship for them and meeting their emotional needs. So our most recent example is with women's health. So during COVID, there's already gaps and inequities in women's health, but those started to exacerbate, right? She's often the chief medical officer of the family, and she's burning the candle on both ends, taking care of aging parents, taking care of children, and we saw that women were not prioritizing their health. So we introduced some functional benefits for people. We introduced new reproductive health services in our Minute Clinics to make them more accessible. We introduced virtual care in all 50 states. But we started to dig deeper and look at, what are some of the underlying things that are more social determinants of health that are impacting women? And what we dug into was period poverty. So 1 in 5 girls miss school because of lack of access to period products. A lot of brands have been doing a lot over the years to help address this. But as the largest healthcare company in the country that has a proven track record of using our scale for good, we challenged ourselves to figure out what we could do, because if girls don't go to school, education is one of the social determinants of health. That leads to negative health outcomes over time. So we took 3 bold moves beginning in last October. In 26 states, there is a tax on period products, and we don't believe that is right. So in states where it is legally permissible for us to do so, we are paying the menstrual tax on behalf of our customers. And we're partnering with Period Law and Period.org to try to eliminate this tax over time. We reduced the prices of our CVS Health branded period products by 25%. And we took on the pink tax. So essentially, we put in place operational processes to ensure that whether if the product has the same ingredients and it's being priced more because it's pink or blue, we are not allowing that to happen in our store. So it's one small step as we look to support the needs of women. But again, what we find is when there's an unmet consumer need and a business opportunity that come together, and you can provide functional and emotional support for your customers, everybody wins. So we introduced this in October. Again, very strong positive sentiment. We just have work to do to increase awareness of our efforts.
So this is a tougher one, but I could see this room. These are all great people. You can just tell by their faces. Good-hearted. They're inspired by this. They want to go back and make sure that their organizations are purpose-led, but they're not always purpose-led at your level. So what are your recommendations to really make that impact or to encourage your organization if you feel like they're not doing enough to make that change?
So I would say there's good old-fashioned tenacity and grit go a long way. So gather your data, gather your insights, and keep fighting the fight, candidly, because some of this most recent work, it wasn't just one conversation and one PowerPoint deck and one, Zoom presentation. Oh yeah, let's go do that, right? It was several, and it wasn't just me. The other thing I would say, to your point of collaboration with our women's health efforts, the reason we were able to get the executive team rallied behind this was because we came as a united front. We showed up with marketing, legal, compliance, government affairs, merchandising together at the same table saying, we all think this is what we should be doing, and this is how it's going to help us resonate with our customers, grow our customer base, and also drive business. So that's, I would say, tenacity and grit, perseverance, and collaboration going together, not going it alone, will help the organization. But I would also say that, again, purpose for the sake of purpose that isn't authentic to your brand isn't worth chasing. So I would encourage people to make sure that what they're doing and pursuing is really, really hyper relevant, because consumers see through the veil when it's not.
So a unified effort led by the voice of the customer that's going to impact the business, I think, is a great methodology to use. So I do want to come back to loyalty. We talked about it. I go to a lot of these, and I was at the big show a little bit this week as well. I heard this quote, and it kind of jumps out to me. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Loyalty is sometimes seen as a quick fix, but if you don't have the basics of customer experience down and you layer loyalty on top of it, it's going to fail. And so the basics of customer experience, at the end of the day, loyalty is just a great experience that makes me want to come back and do it again. So what are your thoughts on that, and making sure that you don't just build a loyalty program, but you're really thinking about experience across the board?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I actually, we call these loyalty programs, but they're really rewards programs, right? I mean, if you think about, how you garner loyalty, it's to your point. I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. It's getting people to engage with you and get their loyalty beyond reason, not just because you're putting an incentive in front of them and getting them to take an action. That is incredibly important and part of what we do as marketers every day. But I liked a lot of what Kim was speaking about earlier and some of those differentiated experiences that they're creating at Toys R Us. We strive to do that as well. For us, the humans are an incredibly differentiating part of our experience. The pharmacist, the front store colleague. In some of our stores, we actually have a position called the care concierge, and their only job is to help you navigate questions, answers, find products, and so you can't lose sight of that, and it's actually those things that over the long term will have an even larger impact than the next reward we put in front of people. But again, those are incredibly important things to do as well.
I love your focus on the colleagues as well, to make sure, because that will make me feel loyal as well. All right, I think we have some more time, so I'm going to keep asking you questions. So let's talk about, because your title includes store right there in the title, but it's also just about marketing. So talk about the in-store experience, your digital experience, a little bit different than a Toys R Us or some of the other brands we're going to hear from today, but still important to kind of merge those two worlds. So talk to us a little bit about how you're unifying in-store and online.
Yeah, so we really do think about the back and forth, and in our case, a lot of times it's using digital to enable better physical interactions. 85% of America lives within 10 miles of a CVS. So traditional e-commerce, it is part of our business model. And there are occasions where our customer is trying to stock up or easily replenish items that they know that they need regularly. And so they have those shipped to home. But more and more for us, it's about digitally enabling transactions to help you save time. So buy online, pick up in store is a big opportunity for us, whether it's you don't want to stand in the aisle and shop sensitive products, or you don't want to find that exact shade of lipstick, we can do that on your behalf. So we're using digital in that way. Same thing with accessing your coupons, right? So we are constantly investing in how we make it easier to access the relevant deals for you, activate those deals. So when you come into our stores, you can get in and out, because, that is what we're trying to provide: accessible, affordable care for time-starved individuals in particular. And then in our pharmacy, same thing. It's about how do we use technology in the way to, if you can prepay for your script, get all the information there. When you're in our doors, you have more time to interact with the pharmacist and ask a question about your condition or ask a question about the medication versus spending that time engaging in the transactional components. So we think about, again, how digital enables physical and omnichannel.
And the in-store data, how granular are you getting with that? And I'm imagining, you talk about living so close to a store, but there's a CVS not too far from here, and there's a CVS in Kansas and in San Francisco, very different regions. So how are you kind of thinking about that from a geo perspective?
Yeah, so we can get super granular. We have a lot of information on our extra care members, and we do have a home store assigned to people. But as people have mentioned, many people shop many locations, and one of the great things about our brand is that when you're traveling, you feel comfortable. Oh, I know CVS, so I'm going to go into CVS because I know what that experience is like. But I will say, what you've mentioned, personalization at scale. This is where it's still hard, right? It's still hard. We have all the information, the data exists, the technology exists, but getting the operational processes and the creative produced to get to that level of 8,000 locations having very hyper-local assortment and hyper-local experience is something that we're still working on. So it's not absent the data and the technology, it's the operational processes to really do it at a granular scaled level.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and that goes back to the intersection. So the data comes in, someone's got to turn it into an actual insight so I can use it. That's got to be shared amongst the partners. Then you've got to create the content, test it. So where's the, if there is a significant blocker, if you could magically fix one part of that, where do you think it's most challenging?
I think it's most challenging in that producing the creative assets, although that's getting better. As a specific example, we have digital end caps now in some of our stores. So you might go into one of our doors and see on the sunscreen end cap, we're using data that displays the UV index in your local store at the time to say to you, okay, the UV index is high, so you might want to up the SPF today. And so we're constantly tinkering with ways to do that. But I think the other challenge that we have, and I'll relate back to what Kim said in one of the questions that she got, is how you enable that localization, how we empower our store teams to create hyper-local and personalized experiences for their community, balancing that with the consistency of the brand, right? That is the challenge, because if you will allow too much creativity, then you might lose the essence of what makes your brand strong as customers engage, at CVS's across the country.
Yeah, governance is not a sexy word, but it's really important, because all of a sudden creative becomes inauthentic or untrue to who you guys are. this is obviously all about retail, but you did mention sort of the CPG partners, truth be told, I spend a lot of time with CPG customers at Sprinklr, so I'm always curious about how that partnership works, where it could be better. What it inspires you about partnering with the brands themselves? Where does the innovation come from, on their side versus on your side? What are the best ways for those kind of relationships to work? Because there are folks here on both sides of that.
So I think that, again, it goes back to having all the right players at the table. When we have marketing teams engaging with our CPG partners in isolation, or merchandising partners engaging with our CPG partners in isolation, or operators or inventory or whomever it is, having those groups at the table and doing joint business planning is something that's critically important. And the other thing I'd say is, we appreciate and invest more time and attention in our CPG partners that are looking to grow the category for the good of the consumer, and not just their own business or brands. And so we're seeing more and more of that from our good partners as we're all trying to really build health and wellness. But I guess I'd say having all the right players at the table together, so you're not having these disparate conversations and chasing tactics, but driving holistic, consumer-centric solutions in partnership. There's still more work we can do, but we're on a good path.
For the good of the consumer, I can't imagine a better place to end. Erin, thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much, Joe, and thanks for having me.
Round of applause for Erin, please.